Morning, good afternoon, friends who are here. It's so good to see some of our friends that are coming back, and so good to see new friends as well. Hi, friends online. I have two announcements today. Next Sunday, there will not be Sangha. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy some time with practice on your own. Enjoy some sunshine or some rain. And while the monastics are gone, there will be Sangha on Wednesdays and there will be Sangha on Sundays, and it will be offerings from our home Sangha, our home group, and it'll be very special to see how we all are walking through our Dharma and share it. So no Sangha next week, and then starting back up again, there will be Sangha through the time that the monastics are gone for the month of May and June. Thank you and have a beautiful morning.
So there's this wonderful dream, and the dream was so wonderful that I felt sad that I was out of the dream. And I'm having lots of dreams lately, but I felt sad that I was out of the dream, and I felt the weight and the oppression, of ordinary life and samsara, and I take different ways of looking at at these dreams, and everybody tells me how they keep a journal and they write these things down and they go back and they ponder them and they review them. But I don't, because I'm working on a certain practice. There's a certain cultivation that I'm doing right now, which is seeing, life like a dream, like a bubble, like a shadow, you know, uh, like the morning dew, and then the sun comes out and it's gone. And he says that's better than trying to analyze life. And analyzing life can produce a lot of dukkha, a lot of suffering, a lot of regret. It can also bring some joys, like I'm not as bad as I used to be, But in general, that's what tips our scale on one side or the other side of balance, as we do this analyzing thing. It's what makes us hold on to our regret about things that we've done or things that have been done to us. It's what makes us be overly or have some arrogance about the things that we have accomplished, that makes us think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think. I tell you, nothing feels better than a good dose of humility, because you start to feel more like right, more like in a free zone, a free space. But when our pride of life begins to take over, you can start to feel the pressure. It's like you're going down in water without your what do you call that mask on? Yeah, without your scuba gear. It's something like that. And so after a while, we become attuned to this sense, on one level, we can call it energy, this sense of weightlessness or weightiness, you know, and then we start to view life and all of the things that we do through not the lens of this, but through the weight of it. And so we characterize whether we had a good day or whether we had a bad day by these feelings that we've had, or these thoughts, these things that we have thought throughout the day. And so I had a particular Dharma talk for today, but not because of the police officer. But because while I was looking for additional references in the expounding the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra, and I ran across, that's such an irreverent word, but I encountered a part of this conversation that speaks of all of the Buddhas of the three times rely on prajna paramita and thereby attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. And and I read this and I said, well, this is good for me, you know. But then I thought, like, but it wouldn't be what would be of so much interest necessarily to others. And I thought, then why do I think it's so good for me? You know, like, do think I think differently than others? Do I think more deeply than others? Do I think no? And so I was asking the question, why did I think this would not be suitable for you? And I couldn't really come up with a reason. So although it's going to be a little bit intense and deep, I think it's good to hear this chapter in the book because we should know what we are aspiring to. If we don't know, you know, where we're going, how will we know when we get there? And this section talks about the qualities of a fully enlightened Buddha. And I was touched by some of the similarities I could see just on my low state of, but my press towards the mark of that prize and how it excited me to know the qualities that are inherent in me that have not yet manifested, but to know that they're not just in the Buddha, you know, but they are in me. And this is a whole process of waking up to their presence. It's like, you know, being the heir to a fortune. And you don't know it, you know, and then somebody sends you a letter and says, you know, this is what you possess. And so if I don't know it, I will never spend it. If I know it, then I will spend it. But because this is wisdom, it means I will spend it what?
Wisely.
Wisely. Yeah. And to know that because this is an inheritance of wisdom, that when I go to spend it, spending it and wisely are coupled. They go together. So I don't have a choice of spending it foolishly or spending it wisely. Spending it wisely, they go together. And how wonderful that is that they come coupled in that way, because then I don't have to get it and then figure out how to, and figure out how to use it. How to use it comes joined with it. And so for that reason, I can abide in a kind of peace, a kind of peaceful state. Okay, so I'm going to read, and if I finish this section, then I'll go back to where it was. Okay, so I'm going to tell the truth. I was just saying something to make a point earlier. I'm going to keep that route because that's the quickest route, even when you don't speed. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep traveling that route, and I am vowing to adjust my travel time. And if I do this, you know, this will be a great accomplishment for me. You know, because I believe in speeding. I believe in setting my own. I do, but when you live in a society, you're making a covenant with the society, and you're agreeing to be bound by certain things. Okay, so I'm gonna try. All Buddhas of the three times rely on prajna paramita, thereby attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. All the Buddhas of the three times refers to Buddhas of the past, present, and future. Mhm. To all of the countless Buddhas and all of the limitless time and endless space. So we don't think there was just Shakyamuni Buddha, right? Nobody thinks that, right? Okay. What is meant by the three times, past, present, and future, are the three times? That is, the scope is the entirety of limitless time and endless space. Just imagine now, limitless time and endless space. That's what the scientists are beginning to discover. This is what Shakyamuni shared with us, that he saw or penetrated just in his meditation. So it gives you some idea of the capacity of the human being, right? That we probably are not even using a pinky nail of our capacity, you know, because we've been distracted by so many things. Says that is, the scope is the entirety of limitless time and endless space. Limitless time can also be called innumerable years. Anyway, time has no limit, space is endless. And after we know the truths of Buddha Dharma, we know that even the universe has no bounds. There is no boundary of any kind. That is what is called endless space. There are countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Your ancestors are endless. You do not have an earliest ancestor. You cannot think of one who was the earliest, not to mention even counting them all. Thus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times are in the domain of limitless time and endless space. This is the truth of innumerableness and boundlessness that exists in reality. The Dharma that the world-honored Shakyamuni Buddha imparted in our world is truly magnificent. You should take the time to learn such Dharma. He was able to state Buddha Dharma is boundless. The reason lies in what we're talking about today. The phrase rely on prajna paramita and thereby means relying on the supreme wisdom, the highest unsurpassed pure wisdom. Prajna is used to illuminate thoroughly a state of samadhi that is based on correct understanding and is based on correct views. All Buddhas rely on that marvelous wisdom of prajna to realize the supreme, perfect enlightenment. Therefore, you should know that prajna is the mother of all Buddhas. All Buddhas are able to achieve such realization by relying on prajna and samadhi. The general term is reliance on prajna. That's because having prajna makes the thorough illumination of the state of samadhi possible. Thus, prajna gives birth to all Buddhas. The Dharma that I impart may not be altered by adding one sentence or deleting one sentence. How could practitioners understand the endless subtleties contained therein? You know about mantras. Mantras are inexplicable and they're subtle. The sounds of those several syllables, their signal to the universe and their ability to connect with Siddhi are of unlimited power. The Dharma that I impart does not depart from the same kind of underlying significance. These words that I utter here today shall remain for future reference, and all will be seen from actual achievements in the future. It will be clear some years from now. And so I think this was 20 years ago that he gave this talk. And he said it would not be transcribed for a decade to the Chinese, and it would take more than 20 years for it to be translated into English. And so we're at a preliminary translation now, 20 some years later, as he predicted, but it has not been released to the public. So we are delighted to have a preliminary translation, and it is so wonderful in its capacity to help us take blinders off. That we've been anxious to disseminate it over the internet, and we've been not anxious. We've just been downright frustrated and angry because we couldn't, because it has done so much for us. But actually, the dream that I had last night, which I wasn't going to tell you the dream, but the dream that I had last night was around patience on the release. And it's like yo-yo, because every time I get to a place of acceptance around, where I have a view of patience, then I go the opposite way and I get impatient. Like, I believe everybody should have it in their hands, and since it was given to me and it's in my hands, okay, so I'm going to make it available. And if there's a price to pay for that, I'm willing to pay the price. I'm willing to pay that for a karmic debt, because I believe within my heart of hearts it will benefit more than it will harm. So I take that stand. As soon as I take that stand, then the ball gets batted in the other direction. So I think this is all a process of arriving at an equitable truth, arriving at a firm and established base, and we have to go back and forth in our examination of it to arrive at that space. That's how we do with all matters. That's how we do with the matters of life. We decide we're going to do this, and we'll think upon that, and we'll decide, well, maybe we'll shave off those 3 parts and we'll do this, and we shave off some more. And at some point we arrive at a true place of peace where one is not even thinking about it. One's just flowing because the decision has been firmly established within us. That's how we do over just ordinary matters. How much more should we evaluate things that we have to address in our life concerning spiritual matters? And that's a medium place, because when it really gets established in you, then you stop separating spiritual matters from worldly matters. You just all see it all as matters, and you reconcile, or you deal with it from whatever your highest level of knowing is. And so bit by bit, this whole notion of this is spiritual and this is worldly starts to, they don't meld, they start to just fall away. And one's no longer thinking this is spiritual and this is worldly. There's not the demarcation in that kind of way. One just starts moving from a place of confusion and doubt and trepidation, or they're moving from a place of ease. I mean, if a police officer pulls me over, I'm not moved in the least. He's either going to give me a ticket or he ain't. And whichever way, I'll just deal with it. So you start to not be affected by things, or you don't see what represents as a standard, or an enemy against you. Just don't see them that way. Like maybe you hope you get by, they'll play another day. But you don't hold it in those tight ways that you always aware, always thinking through something, always pondering something, always wondering something, always checking something, always evaluating something, always up here. You just start to move in your life just in a natural kind of effortless way. And if you're if your way of moving brings a consequence, you say, dang, okay, and then you just go with whatever the recompense is, but it doesn't bring the kind of suffering that it used to have. Life takes on a different kind of quality where you can kind of handle the good and the bad, and because you don't have to see it as good or bad, you just see it as it is. This is what has happened. And so then you start to take more charge over your life. You have more influence in your own matters, but not in an arrogant kind of way. Just in if you didn't like that, don't do that again. If you did like that and it's not good for other people, ultimately, there's going to be some bounce back on you. I mean, driving here, my mind started going, oh, well, what happens if, because I like this road, though. It's just a quick, easy, no lights. I like this road. Well, just one light, and he caught me before I got to the one light. I said, okay, well, what happens if I don't speed and I hit somebody? Then I would feel bad that I hit somebody, but I wouldn't feel guilty because I hit somebody because or while I was speeding. See that's how the mind starts going. And I said, that is such a stupid argument. It's not even worth thinking about. And so because it doesn't, now speed has become the thing, but speed's not the thing. The speed was really getting caught by the policeman. It wasn't about the speed. The issue was about getting caught speeding by the policeman. But my mind just deflected that whole thing and went into this philosophical, conversation about hitting somebody while I was speeding versus while I wasn't speeding. And it just tried to run off into its own storyline. That's how we do with the affairs of life. When we use this deep analysis, it becomes a justification for our view, whether that view is one of arrogance or whether that view is, one of defeat or insufficiency. And I'll tell you, even the negative side of that defeat and insufficiency is it's at least equally as destructive, if not more so, than the one of arrogance. So I look at people who are taken by the power of unsavory leaders, and it's because they have such a deep sense of insufficiency and lack of hope. You say, like, why are they taken by this kind of character? Can't they see through that? They can't, because they're so obscured by their deep sense of insufficiency and lack of hope. And when one sees that, then compassion arises for that. And one has a greater desire to bring truth into the world, even if it's only through each one teach one, just, making the change. The Buddha Master said, you start with yourself, becoming radically honest with yourself about how you see things, how you hold things, and not trying to make an impression on others to make people think you're something other than what you are. And if we lived our whole life trying to put our best side, show our best side, that can take some time. And we have to have the encouragement to keep going on. That's why in the Sangha we have to love one another. Because this might be the only place that we can drop that false persona and start on our trek to being authentic and truthful with ourselves and with others, that bringing that brightness up. But that brightness is in us. It's not sunshine. We're not going to grab it from the sun. This is the intrinsic quality of our nature, brightening inside until all is light. And so this takes a deep, deep introspection. And so this sutta gives us some idea of what that looks like. I'm not following a written text as I teach you disciples here today. Rather, I'm telling all of you that this is indeed the way it is regarding prajna. Only prajna has such an effect. However many Buddhas there are in the universe, no matter which Buddhas, all are born from prajna. The term all Buddhas is a concise term referring to every Buddha. The word Buddha is translated as enlightened one. When translating the term all Buddhas, Buddhas are called enlightened ones, meaning completely enlightened. The term enlightened one has three meanings. An enlightened one has to fit the three meanings to be called an enlightened one. The first meaning is to enlighten oneself. That is, one is thoroughly enlightened such that the completeness of enlightenment is impeccable. The second meaning is to enlighten others. As for this second meaning, after you yourself understand, you should go and enlighten other people, applying unconditional loving kindness to save sentient beings in the sentient realm. All living beings in the entire human realm and universe revolve in samsara in accordance with their karmic conditions and karmic forces bearing upon them. And at the same time, karmic conditions and karmic forces should create the conditions for them to achieve that accomplishment. In other words, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas should, in accordance with karmic conditions, create conditions for living beings. In this way, they generate the power of their vow and form karmic connections with living beings. Only then can they save them. Therefore, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas must manage all karmic conditions without which living beings cannot be saved. They must create causes that produce karmic conditions or karmic connections, thereby bringing about the existence of such conditions and bringing about the existence of such connections. I'll mention a few examples. If today I want to save you, I must know you. To know you, I must tell you to come over. I must directly go to where you are and find you in order to create a kind of karmic connection. This is a part of the principle of applying loving kindness, regardless of the conditions. Some Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will create an effect that is a kind of karmic connection with you without your even knowing it. All such acts are out of compassion to pervasively save living beings. You see, our monastic masters and Buddha all go or went on alms rounds carrying a bowl. They begged for food. When you give such a person food to eat, a type of karmic connection is formed. At a certain time, you will naturally have a Dharma connection with him. If no karmic connection has been formed with someone, even if you speak to him face to face about the Dharma, he will oppose you. Of course, there are reasons behind this, which are very profound. There are also ultimate truths regarding the application of loving kindness, regardless of the conditions, which are even more profound in the future. I will gradually impart them to you. The third meaning is the perfection of enlightenment practice. After cultivating the causes of enlightenment through eons, one's cultivation is complete and the effect is perfect. One's constant practice is to become enlightened. To become enlightened must be complete, such that there is nothing more to practice, nothing more to cultivate. Cultivating the causes of enlightenment through eons refers to cultivating causality in countless lifetimes and eons since beginningless time without ignoring the law of cause and effect. Additionally, while not ignoring the law of cause and effect, one has carried out for living beings all kinds of Buddhist work. One's cultivation has led to the perfect fruit. One's practice is complete. So when we're speaking of Buddhists, we're not speaking of a sect, of a denomination, of a particular um, religion, if we understand it, it is one who possesses particular qualities. One who possesses particular qualities. So even within Buddhism, we speak of non-Buddhist practice. And some of us, maybe not many, because everybody's got a badge of pride around their spiritual discipline and what it's called, but some of us recognize that there are Buddhas and Buddhists who are not Buddhist practitioners. But sometimes we use a certain terminology because it gives a vague idea around what some of the foundational principles are. So I say, in that sense, you can be offended by it or not offended by the term Buddhist and Buddhist practice versus non-Buddhist practice. The choice is yours. Yes.
Did I hear correctly that when that enlightened state that no longer needs to practice? Because I thought practice would be endless.
Once even becoming a Buddha, there's a difference between a Buddha and Samyak Sambuddha, which is the fully enlightened. And when you go further, it talks about what that means and what that is. But yes, that is exactly what is being said right here, right now. It comes to a place where there's the path of no more learning, and that one is naturally flowing, and that deals with the realization of emptiness and marvelous wisdom, or non-duality. So it's not going to be a thing that even can be articulated in a Dharma talk. That's why it takes years and years and years and years and pulling back layers, like pulling back the layers of an onion. So sometimes there is some part of it that we get, some part of it that I won't say that we don't get. It's some part of it that we get, and some parts of it don't make sense to us at this time. He says, well, you could just sit that part aside and you just keep going forward. And at some point, I'm like, I got that now, and that's now a part of me, that understanding. But it comes through direct realization. So as you have incremental realization, 5 can be in a room and they know it from 5 different aspects, 5 different levels, 5 different degrees of depth. It's like that. So I throw it all out, take whatever part is useful, but hold that right there. If you hear something that's different from what you've already understood, it doesn't mean that we don't have to reject anybody else's truth. We can just let it be their truth. It may not be mine, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that. And sometimes I like just ponder, like that's a no for me, but at other times I don't know. So I leave that where it is. But yes, is there a place of absolute oneness with the universe? Yes. And he even goes further to say that a Buddha is the universe. But that'll be way down the road. Yes. You just holding the mic. Okay. Oh, so that's intention. Oh, okay. Very good. The third meaning is the perfection of enlightenment practice. Is that the one I just read? Yes? Okay. Oh. Okay, once cultivation has led to the, okay. While not ignoring the law of cause and effect, one has carried out for living beings all kinds of enlightened work or Buddhist work. Once cultivation has led to the perfect fruit, one's practice is complete. So I like that because it's always been portrayed or relayed that this is a practice. I'm like, oh, practice. When do I get to play in the game and when do I win it? So it's wonderful to me that there was this notion, this idea that one's practice can come to completion. When your practice comes to completion, however, you still cannot abandon living beings. One must continue to save living beings, such as the state of a Buddha. One's wisdom is complete, perfect, and without differentiation. Simply put, the universe is Buddha. Buddha is the universe. The myriad things are Buddha. Buddha is the myriad things. The original truth is non-dual, perfect, and flawless, such is called Buddha. Examples of past Buddha are such as Dorje Change Buddha, not speaking of Dorje Change Buddha III, but Dorje Change Buddha, who was the original, or what we call the original Dharmakaya, and countless other limitless past Buddhas, present Buddhas such as Shakyamuni, who is the supreme leader of Buddhism in this particular Saha world, and all the Buddhas of future times, such as Maitreya Buddha, who will become a Buddha at the Dragon Flower Assembly. Maitreya Bodhisattva and others among the 1,000 Buddhas of the current good eon who will become Buddhas are examples that are closer to our time. Examples in the distant future are Skanda, Bodhisattva, and others. They are all future Buddhas. We don't have to talk only about Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To tell you the truth, even practitioners of non-Buddhist ways want to connect with the jhana that is based on original nature and achieve imperturbableness. They may stare at a kind of balloon or contemplate a certain kind of gas. Acupuncture points on the body meridians relating to their internal organs, diagrams, and so on. Only then can they succeed. And there you're speaking of some of the Taoist practices. Therefore, I told them, what are these inner body functions you claim? What is the development of extraordinary states that you claim? These are all empty. I tell you in clear and definite terms that the three karmas of body, speech, and mind have you tied up. You use thought to visualize or contemplate. You focus your thought on your body or on the earth or internal, external bright fields, or your practice may be being immovable, or you focus your thought on your exhalations, like mindfulness of breathing and counting the breaths, or chanting something while the body makes some movements. Movements involves the body. No matter what the movement may be, including sitting, it is an act of bodily karma. To exhale or inhale through the mouth is also an act of bodily karma. When the mind consciousness visualizes or contemplates something, that is an act of the mind. Through utilization of the three karmas of body, speech, and mind, those people enter into a state of jhana that is natural. At that time, they will naturally enter a state of emptiness, and entering that state of emptiness will produce effectiveness or usefulness. The effectiveness or usefulness thus produced is the most pitiful when compared with the practices of those practitioners of esoteric yoga. They are the kind of side effects associated with having just achieved a bit of mental tranquility or having just entered a state of jhana. We regard all of them as false, illusory, temporary appearances. However, if one is unattached to self side effects, one will, of course, succeed in achieving extraordinary functions. One will be able to make use of them anytime, anywhere. For example, If you can be imperturbable for only 10 minutes without giving rise to any stray thought, then I tell all of you that you will immediately acquire the supernormal power of divine vision, which means while one sits, one can see through walls, see very, very far. There was once a disciple who acquired the supernatural power of divine vision after entering samadhi. After he acquired this power, he told me, "It is truly strange. I saw my mother fall down. While I was doing my Dharma practice, I suddenly saw my hometown. My mother went to wash clothes, and while she was washing clothes, she suddenly fell from the steps. She was injured from the fall." He said he was concerned and wondered whether what he saw was true or not. Sure enough, 2 days later, he again entered the state of divine vision. He discovered that his mother not only fell, she was taken to the hospital to have her bone fracture set. Additionally, she had a high fever due to infection, and that disciple was very worried. On the third day, a telegram arrived stating that his mother indeed was injured from a fall and that it was hoped he would come back home. He was thousands of miles away. There is another disciple, while he was doing his Dharma practice, he saw that there was someone outside who came looking for him. He did not become attached to that. He got up from his seat, for he wanted to go out and verify what he saw. Once he walked out, he saw that such fellow disciple had indeed arrived. This is called the supernormal power of divine vision. When will this power arise? As I told you, you must enter the state of jhana. You must completely sweep away all states wherein the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind come in contact with the six sense objects: what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, and what you feel. Through non-attachment to all five aggregates: form, feeling, consciousness, action, and thought. One naturally will enter the enlightening illumination of Buddha nature. Only in the midst of enlightening illumination can a kind of differentiation stemming from the stray thoughts of consciousness arise, producing a function or a usage. So a supernormal power then is simply a usage once one has gotten into a place of jhana where there is an equality meaning a non-differentiation of views of what one sees, hears, tastes, touch, smells, thinks, and also a differentiation where one of those things is popping up in his consciousness. But when it all settles down, it's called impartiality of view. For instance, I can be talking, sometimes when I'm talking the Dharma, my concentration is there with the Dharma, and there is everybody, and I see all of you, but there's nothing that is tying me to you. But then I home in on someone, I'll see one, and then immediately at that moment, I am connected with that one for the time that I focus myself. And so I drop out of a non-differentiating state of speaking to everybody to directing my attention to somebody, you know. So you can just in your ordinary daily life begin to notice how and when you drop into these non-differentiating states where you don't have a dog in the fight, where you're not pointedly directed towards anything. And it happens to us many, many, many times throughout the day. The last thought has passed, the next has not arisen. And so in meditation, what we're doing is allowing our awareness of this common occurrence to be realized or recognized. And more like recognize it when you come out of it, you recognize that you weren't for that moment. I mean, you can't even stay mad at somebody who did something to you. You know, you like, it starts to fade away. It's like, no, I don't want to just go away yet because I'm not through being mad. You know, we have to really work at holding our anger, to keep it there on locked in. There's a natural, can you see it? There's a natural gravitation towards impartiality. We have like sold ourselves this story about it's so hard. It's so hard to be impartial. It's so hard to not hate. It's so hard to not be angry. It's so hard. But that's a story that we have been telling ourselves. What we were constantly saying, it's not hard. 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 Then I will start to see the true power of personage of Buddha nature I actually possess. Because I keep trying to convince myself about how hard it is and how it's not my fault and how I can't help myself. John Fetzer, bless his heart, he's no longer alive, but he was one of the top 400 wealthiest men in America. In his life, he was sort of like the father of radio. Not that he invented it, but he was the one who took the science of radio and created the first radio station. And and it all came out of the thought of being able to transmit information through an invisible means. And he was trying to prove that prayer was effective, that you could pray and send a signal. Praying was sending a signal, that you could send a signal to someone who was sick. And if your signal was strong enough, it could reach them and it could tune them. That's what really enthused him about radio and the science of radio. And he began to, invest in people, not organizations, invest in people who were touching these kinds of realizations. And he gave all of his fortune to, he created a foundation for the continual discovery of that. And last year, they gave me a gift of $50,000 so that I could use it to go away and spend my time reflecting, and deepening my practices. And I didn't know about them before they offered that gift. Of course, I gave the money to Hardwood, but the fact is that he set up this foundation to explore that with individuals. And this was what he said: I disagree with this weak as I am philosophy, which makes man dependent upon a God every minute of the day. I believe that there is planted in all humans a law of conduct, which is observed will usher him into a future life with all its rewards. Why some men don't get there is their own moral affair. So with this in mind, I don't reconcile myself to the usual concept of prayer, where I'm begging for something. I have always had some doubt in my mind about this. I believe it is planted in every mind, as much a part of his physical and mental attributes, giving all to use and to exercise. It is there. I think then, in summary, man has the equipment to live without sinning. He doesn't have to bow and scrape and agonize to get into the right mental set. The will to do and succeed is already there. One can mold one's own future, and overcome through the power that is already there. And that's what he dedicated his life to. And he said he felt that that was the reason for his wealth and success in life, was to be able to create a means, a vehicle by which men could investigate this truth. So to me, he is a great bodhisattva. And many times I think about him, or he comes to me in a certain way. There is a karmic connection. And I just try to allow that mind stream that comes from I consider him my ancestor. I consider him my family. And that is a family and an ancestry that's based not on blood, but it's based instead on a karmic connection and a path of practice. As I just told you, disciples, so that's all supernormal power, divine vision is. And if one keeps going to that, then one will strengthen that connection and that ability. And I say this because some of you in the Sangha have been talking to me, and I admit myself, I've been having certain experiences. And so we have to be careful how we work with understanding how the experiences can be understood and how we use them. And if we think of them as powers to that we exercise out of our greatness, then they will turn into destructive forces that will be outside of our control, just due to our own ignorance. And so so the Buddha suggests that we also think of these experiences, even though they are true in the sense of are occurring and are validated. He said we should also think of them as what? Empty, illusory, a bubble, a dream, so that they can be in that state that does not cause us to be too high, right? If we're too high, then we'll have to come down. If we're too low, we have to build up. But when you're in that perfect space, then you're like floating. That's what that middle way is. It's not half this and half this, or halfway to this and halfway to this, but it's in that space where there is not the supreme sense of I-ness. And yet, that's why I say the sage does without doing. There's no thought I am doing. The sage does without doing, yet nothing goes undone. So just imagining what that freedom could be like, because we are burdened. We're burdened when we don't do, and we're burdened when we do. We can feel the burden of doing. Even a good deed, we feel it has a weight. It has a pressure. That I-ness that's connected with it. But when one is not even thinking, just receiving and passing on to what needs without, that's what I did yesterday. And even if you don't say it to someone, I'm not even talking about saying it to somebody else. I'm talking about thinking it. I'm talking about holding it, owning it. That's where the layers of the conceit I begin. And they pile on and pile on and pile on until we think we are the things that we do. As I just told you, disciples, those masters claim that this kind of enlightening illumination that they produce is high level, extraordinary function. How could it be high level? Suppose one is attached to a supernormal power of divine vision. He grasps for it every day when sitting on his Dharma practice. Somebody over there mentioned the grasping. I think it was you. He grasps for it, sitting on his Dharma practice seat. With the movement of thought, he could think, oh, let me first watch a movie at the Haiping Cinema. He said, and then he would sit in his room and watch the movie. Every day, he does not hesitate to have such fun. As a result, every day after he sits down on his seat, he seizes the opportunity to watch. Every day, he grasps for that usage. As he uses it over and over again, time is lost and permanence in the form of death arrives. The time comes when his body that he received as karmic retribution that has been undergoing the process of arising, is existing, decaying, and vanishing, is about to cease. And the messenger of impermanence comes to invite him, saying, King Yama invites you to go to where he is to play. Scared out of his wits, he says, not, I have the supernormal power of divine vision. His response is, no, leave now. He has no choice but to immediately breathe his last breath out. Air no longer comes through his neck. His body temperature decreases. The great elements of earth, water, fire, and wind in his body perish. His only path is death. This is the fate of people who are attached to phenomenal appearances as they cultivate themselves through practice. In the end, they must migrate in samsara. Thus, no matter what state we have generated or what supernormal power we have acquired, we must not become attached to it, not even to great powers such as Qigong. We should always understand the principle that all forms, all are illusory. This is the absolute truth that the Buddha has told us. The practice of non-attachment is all the more applicable to those self-satisfying states that arise from superficial, trivial practices. It is not worth becoming attached, even when one enters the 5 supernormal powers of limitless vision, limitless hearing, reading the minds of others, divine movement, motion, and knowing the past and the future. It says, if you become attached, if every day you think about seeing something through divine vision, then every day such vision will come. And you may wonder why it will. It's because when such cultivated powers have been developed to a certain state, it will, of course, go through that process every day. When you sit down to practice, that cultivated power that you have developed will first appear and go through the process. If you are attached to it, the second set of scenes will not come. The reason is that the first set of scenes has already occupied the position. The space has been taken, thus there is no place for other states. You cannot reach higher states. So that's the second reason for not being attached to whatever you see or whatever comes to you through a non-normal thinking state, is because you'll become attached to that state and you can't go any higher. And that's why you have people who are, what do you call them? Who are fortune tellers, and who have, it's not that they don't have a capacity, but they have now just been locked into that state because they think, oh, I've got this special power. This is something I have to do for humanity. This is my gift to the world. This is and they keep homing in on that and they get locked out. The difference is that they have a short view and there is a limitless view based upon causality. And so that means that at the snapshot in time when they're, say, reading you, then they may truly see, I mean, a lot of them are fake, but some really are real. And they may see something in the distance in the future, and it's based on this snapshot and of the present moment. But then a year from now, you do something that is a cause that creates a condition that changes the whole matrix, you know. But so they really saw, but they only saw to hear. Where when the prajna comes, the prajna is the universe, it becomes limitless in its view. And so that's why there is the recommendation that one rely upon prajna for their knowing and not upon fortune telling. You know, so to give you an example. And so it is not worth becoming attached, even when one enters the 5 supernormal powers. If you become attached, you will not be able to reach any other higher states. This is like you're being unable to work when you are asleep. If you want to work, you must give up sleeping. It is also like being unable to see a movie when you're watching a live opera. And when you watch a movie, you must give up watching the live opera. Only then can you switch to watching a movie. When you walk, you cannot ride a bicycle. These all convey a common sense principle. Hence, only when you are not attached to the scenes that appear can the supernormal power of divine hearing, let's say, arise after the supernormal power of divine vision passes. Only when you're not even attached to the supernormal power of divine hearing can the supernormal power of reading minds arise. Only when you're not attached to any of these 3, when you're not attached to any of the myriad forms of characteristics and have completely eliminated the concept of a self, can you reach the fruit of defilement extinction. And that's the 5th and the highest fruit of a practitioner or arhat practitioner. In such case, all of your causes and effects, all of the karmic forces that you've made have completely outflowed and they're gone. You have completely cut off any notion of self or personhood and have entered the supernormal power or the supernormal state of defilement extinction. And only then are you able to be liberated from sufferings connected with the afflictions of sickly birth and death, and attain the fruit of our hardship. And then it goes on. So that's like the beginning state of great accomplishment, you know. So until we've come to that state, we know we're still at the low end, you know, of the cycle, which is okay. I mean, the only way there can be a certain usage is you have to be in the what? You have to be in that state. You can't do something that requires this state. If you're not in that state, you can't do it. If you can do it, then you are in that state. And it says just to know that you're in the state, but don't be attached to that state. Otherwise, you get locked in that state and you can't go any higher. And that's the great danger of holding on to things that we already know, things that we've already perfected, practices, you know, that have great meaning from once we start becoming attached to those practices or become attached to those views, it's going to become impossible to advance beyond that state. So you just like keep running like a dog chasing his tail, and you're wanting the next thing, you're wanting more, but you're not opening your hand to give up because you become attached to that state, that understanding, that um, affinity that you already have. So it's like a no-go. You want it, but it's going to cost something. It's going to cost you lessening the attachment to that. So that feels so validating, so loved, so cherished. And I'm resting in the arms of my Savior, and it like just catapults me some way. And he's saying, "Wake up! You're 21 now. Be like that." And then we have to think, "Oh, but I don't want to. Like, this is so great. This is so good." But there is still that duality there, and um, so these are the sticky parts for us that are difficult for our growth. It could be something dharmic that we learned. There are a lot of things that I learned in Theravada. Just because truly Theravada is the foundational principles upon which everything else is built. And if you don't have a firm foundation in that, like most Mahayanas, you're bouncing off the walls, and you're caught up in all of these pithy sayings, but you can't find your way out of a wet paper bag. Not in real life. And when you're going through obstacles, it's like, why is this happening to me? Or either you're trying to hide it because you don't have a firm grasp of causality, cause and condition. So you can't. It's hard to tolerate anything that happens to you, or you get sad, overwhelmed, you get depressed, you give up, you just decide it doesn't take all of that. And it really doesn't take all of that, but your decision is not based on wisdom. Your decision is based on feelings. And so and so there are a lot of things that I love about it. And Panyadeep and I used to have this conversation all the time, and I'm saying, well, Panyadeep, that might float your boat, but it's too dead for me. That there is something else that's right beyond my view, and I can't get to it through this means. And he said, I understand. Person does what they have to do. He reached some states of that through his Qigong practice, and his Taoist, his Taoist practice, and his Taoist rituals, but I reached it through a different means, and so we each had to follow our own path, but yet we were able to live together in a perfect harmony, sharing the Dharma from the stream that we came from, and we were never in conflict. We would come to a conclusion, but we each came to a conclusion through our own individual journey in one way, but we'd have to constantly lay down something. We were constantly laying down what we knew before, constantly laying down. Laying down doesn't mean throw it out, forget about it. It means like I've got that. What else am I lacking to get to this place of enlightenment? What else am I lacking? And so we didn't just keep chasing. We kept setting down to be open to what could come next. The wonderful thing about this is that the states fall upon one another. So let's say I'm on the first step. When that step becomes like when one loses the excitement of that step, the great pleasure of that step, and starts to feel like there's something more. I don't have it yet. I don't even know what it is. I just know that there's this movement toward there must be more. And as one starts to fall towards that, the active bliss and pleasure of what we're already holding on to begins to fade. And don't feel bad, because the fading of that pleasure is actually the forward leaning towards the next state. And that's how we grow. And so whenever I'm feeling contented in the sense that, yeah, I get this, I'm with that, but I feel that there is something else, and then one enters into the next state. So he said, with applied and sustained thought, one abides in the first jhana. And he says, in that first jhana, with applied and sustained thought. And then it talks about the next state, without applied and sustained thought. Now I'm no longer thinking about it. I'm just operating in it. That's now who I am. But then one comes to a place in the cycle where that now becomes like not sustaining enough. And when the excitement of that, like all I'm learning or all I'm discovering or all I'm overcoming, when that starts to dull, that propels one to the third. But what most people do is they run back to the second or to the first to revive the to revive the joy and the bliss that one felt when they ascended to that particular state, and so they want to go back to that. And he says, don't go back to it. Sit with the uncertainty. Sit with it because it's only by the falling away of satisfaction with that level can you progress to the next state. So, wow, that's really good.
That's really good.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's very helpful to me because just today.
Yeah, I'd like to speak a little bit to the word burden that you were speaking about earlier, because it seems that people would come here to this environment, to you, when the burden is such and they don't understand it, and like I recently are coming back now because I've been so much consumed in the multitudes and all the chatter. And I stop and think about it. Am I really concerned with what that person thinks about me or whatever? Everything was so minor, but it was becoming such a burden from my perspective. So I knew the only answer was to retract somehow and come back to whatever my foundation was. With the Pannavati used to comment, because I started with Japanese Zen, and it's a little different than his Taoism or whatever. And so there's a comfort in going back to the mountain and being able to just turn it off. And I'm just very intrigued with your saying that don't go back, that you have to stay with it. You have to stay with the confusion and sort of let it do its thing. And I'm right there, right?
Okay. So you think you're going back, but what you're coming to is not back, because where we are in our investigation of the Dharma is somewhere entirely different, and it is a forward move. You just come to the place where it is, one of the places where it is, but it's usually we want to run back to that which we have, but if you came here to run back to that, you won't find it because it's not here. It's not here, but if you stay, you'll find what's here now.
So it's like a series of plateaus.
Exactly.
You're ready for that next plateau.
Actually, you're ready to fall into the base step of the next level of the path for you. And so I don't think it's by any accident that we come. Remember, we are just realization. We're just realizing the wisdom that we already have. So what you're reaching for is, I know better than this. I know whatever's happening in my life now, it might look good out there to the world. They go, oh, he's done so well and he's got this and a blah, 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 and all of that. But within oneself, one has now discontent. And no matter how much praise we get from the world, the outside world, it cannot erase our discontent. We know ourselves, we know when we know something, and we know when we don't know something. And so this is a path of continually unpacking ourselves. We think we're striving for Buddhahood, but the Buddha seed is there. All we're doing is watering from time to time. You're picking some weeds from your garden, and so now your next blooming season, your flower is going to be beautiful in an internal, self-satisfying way, not the external way that people try to give you something. But you can't really. What are you going to give me? What are you going to cut off my chest and put it inside? It's something that I have to arouse and enter into the brightness of myself. So I understand where you were coming from. Now, when you say going back to a foundation.
Yeah, if I could say one more thing. People ask me sometimes about the Buddhism. I never say I'm a Buddhist. I say I'm a student of the Buddhist philosophy. And they ask me, like, well, what is it? What are you talking about? And my answer is kind of close to, I think, what you're talking about, that there are always outside forces acting on us. Like I said, the word burden you had said earlier. That we're constantly having to reevaluate how we fit into the universe, and say everything's okay. I can accept the fact that he's, putting his forces on me, or things went wrong and the police officer stopped me on the road, or whatever it might be that I consider outside forces that are bombarding us at all times. I think the Buddhism is, in a sense, a practice to be able to let them go through and not build resistance to them. And so, again, this is what people ask me all the time, and my perception, and it seems to touch on what you're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. It does. Just know that there's a difference between, Buddhist studies and Buddha Dharma. They're not the same. They're not the same thing. But without Buddhist studies, you cannot encounter Buddha Dharma. So we have to have Buddhist studies. We just don't get stuck on the study part is the impermanent part, or the false part. And this is what we're into in examination. We always talk about I just never hear a lot of talk or much talk about attainment. We talk about practice, but not about attainment. And practice is for the purpose of attainment, not just practice for the sake of practice, but it is to attain something. And whether it is useful or not depends upon a lot of things. And sometimes two people can be doing the exact same thing, and one can be useful and one can be not useful, because it's weighed the different measures concerning how one comes to this and moves through this process. And so if there are 5 of us in a room, all 5 of us can be doing the same thing, but doing it with 5 different motivations and 5 different levels of intensity of motivation. And that would determine whether one is right or one is sort of right, but not exactly right. One is decidedly wrong, you know. And so it's vast, it's deep, it's intricate, and each one of us has our own journey, you know, this journey from our individual self to the undifferentiated state, you know. And some are coming from the west, and some are coming from the east, some from the north, some from the south, coming in every direction. You can't just follow the guidebook. Here, the Buddhist guidebook says, at the next intersection, turn left. And if you turn left, you'll arrive at the destination. But that only applies if I'm to the right of the destination. If I'm to the left of the destination, I have to turn right. You know, and if I'm to the north of it, I have to go, what you call it, south.
Well, you turn.
Yeah, but I can go like this, or I can go diagonal and save some time, right? So that's where your teacher comes in, your guide, your support, your help. Here I'm speaking of, particularly for our song, I'm speaking of those who have affinity with Buddha Master's teaching. That's the difference in coming 400 miles this way and 400 miles this way. That's 800 miles versus 600 miles this way, because he's pointing us to the shortcuts. You know, so I'm like, no, you go like this and you go like this. Fine, have go at it, but I'll take the shortcut. And what those shortcuts actually are, and it helps us to understand some great beings who have walked this planet, who we call Buddhists. Your great master, and your great master is also my great master, you know. And we understood different things in different ways based on the affinity that we have. But sometimes a master passes us on because my work, my vow was this. And for all the half-baked guys that can't make it, just come on in here, I'll ferry you. But my great vow was to be like you. He said, oh, for that you got to go study with him. Remember, all Buddhas are of one mind, but they carry out different tasks. He said, I'm preoccupied with this. You want to help me gather in the ones who need this? Come on down. Start doing your work now. Preach my gospel. Teach this. And there are many who need that. He says, you want to be like me? With the mind state that I have, you got to go study with that one. Because his vow was to create Buddhists. So his curriculum is different than mine. But we're all working together. I think I'm going to stop. Only 1:36, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, wait, I'm going to stop after this paragraph. I love this one over here. So hence, only when you're not attached to scenes that appear can the supernormal power of divine hearing arise. After the supernormal power of divine vision passes, or only when you are not even attached to the supernormal power of divine hearing can the supernormal power of reading minds arise. Well, and they don't have to come in these order, but it's different things. Okay. Only when you are not attached to all of these things, when you're not attached to any of the myriad forms of characteristics and have completely eliminated the concept of a self, can you reach the fruit of defilement extinction. And that's what we're after, defilement extinction. That's the one. So all these others they come as part of the territory, like the dust that gets on your shoes when you walk on a dusty road, but they're not the destination, they're not the prize. Defilement extinction is the prize. However, I still have to tell you that you must not even be attached even to the Dharma. Therefore, you must not be attached to any supernormal power. If you're attached, you will not be able to enter the state of the Bodhisattva. This is very, very important. And then he goes into some other things. So he rolls us back. So I'm going to stop. He talks about the so-called body, mind, and soul, and he debunks that. He says, I want you to understand that only a Buddha is supreme. Another way to express this supremacy is in terms of the truth that a Buddha realizes. The truth that a Buddha realizes, the principles that he realizes, and the state that he enters and abides in. That is, with respect to phenomena and principles, he realizes the absolute truth at the highest level. No other dharma or principle can be placed above that. That is called anuttara. There is no dharma, no phenomena or state, no principle that can be placed above the principles and phenomena realized. That's why it's called anuttara. Then he talks about samyak, and then he talks about sambodhi. And that will take us too far in our time. So I'm going to stop there. But I would like to finish this portion of the teaching before I leave. So I will pick up and I'll put a pin to make sure that I do pick up on this, because I want you to get the rest of this. I'll be leaving along with the nuns, or you staying? Okay. We'll see. And Joe, Busita, Kadara, and Santi. He's out of town today, but Santi will be leaving to go to Boulder to participate in it's so funny because we're not getting like a little what do you call it when a band that's invited, you have your your main stage person who's like, if you went to see Prince, then he would be the show, but he has
The opening act.
Yeah, so right, yeah. So we're the main. Well, yeah, can you believe it?
By the royalties are gonna flow.
I hope they do, because and when you go to those well, I don't know, because we're just going, but there 6 of us, and Maureen and her husband are coming up to support us, and one of by our Madhamacharyas, Reverend Preachow, is gonna come on stage, and he's gonna support us, and he's a well-known musician, and so we're looking forward to it. I've tamped down the excitement about it, because these things shouldn't be too excited and shouldn't be too disappointed when things go bad, and too excited when things go good. Just learning how to be even, they arise, you do your job, you go home. And But pray for us. So
Can you believe it? Where that, you're as good as you get to stop.
no, we're leaving. Well, we're leaving on Thursday, but I'll be gone for a month, and what I hope, because from there I got some of us are going to California for a meditation. We're going to spend the week in solitary meditation, each of us in our own place at Master Zazi's temple, and we're in Fresno, and then we've been asked to share our music ministry at Buddha Master's celebration and Dharma assembly, and there are more books coming out. There again are not in English; they're in Chinese. But I'm learning to have joy in that and not be so disappointed when the English books don't come out. I'm in the beginning throes of enjoying that. I just have to say, yeah, yes. Cultivating altruistic joy for others. I mean, really, because I could say it, but not really feel it. But I'm really, because I know that there is a power in that, and cultivating that kind of joy that they're getting all the writings. But then when I was talking to Buddha Master about that this morning, and I'm through, when I was talking to him about it, I said, like, this really isn't fair. And right after I had that dream that made me feel so good, he says, "Oh well, but this is the good thing. You may not be getting a translation right now, but I have a couple of thousand teachings. I have a couple of thousand teachings, and if you live long enough, you'll get to read them." So.
I believe the 23rd is the Wesak, the day of the Wesak festival, which is when we've been told it's the closest Shakyamuni Buddha comes to the earth each year. The energy is the greatest from Shakyamuni Buddha to each of us at the time. That is a wonderful day to go into personal retreat, whether it's the whole day or whether it's 20 minutes, to try and connect with, not try, to connect with the strongest emanation that occurs each year on that day,
Thank you.
23rd.
Thursday.
Be in the plane.
A little bit.
So what I want to ask is those of you who are not accompanying us, that one way that you can uphold us and the Sangha is to continue to come to Dharma. We have some fine Dharma teachers here, and they're going to be sharing during that time that we are gone, and I take joy, great joy. Like I'm almost dead, so and it's going to be inevitable. The next person that dies in this song is probably going to be me, and so we shouldn't hold on to a notion of permanence. That only I can give the Dharma talk. That only So she not there. I'm not coming. So I hope we have matured beyond that, and we come out with great joy and fascination, and interest and attitude to hear the Dharma, not for any personality. And so I hope you will support those teachers while we're gone. And then from there, Fresno, then Buddha Masters, um, Dharma Assembly. Then I got a retreat uh, in Seattle, and then I'll be back. And I think I only have maybe 2 other retreats this year. I thought that this was a year I was going to start doing retreats again, but I think that work is finished. That's not something that I should be doing just because you're invited or people want you to come. You really need to know what you should be doing, and that's really not what I should be doing at this time. So after that, I won't be gone away from you anymore. Thank you. Can somebody close?
May our continued patience and discernment bring forth the sweet fruits. May we be the first to open our hand and the first to smile. And whether we're coming from the north, the south, the east, the west, or the spaces in between, may we all come to our highest level of attainment in this very lifetime, being of the greatest benefit to all living beings, back in all those directions, and so many more.